Today, we are making spinach and ricotta gnocchi. And there are many varieties of Italian gnocchi, and the differences are often regional. For example, gnocchi in Rome is made with cornmeal, which is very similar to polenta. So different kinds of potatoes can be used. Potato gnocchi is typical in northern Italy, where my family is from. Spinach and ricotta, as we're doing today, is kind of a classic. And the French are also making gnocchi, also make gnocchi with pâte à choux dough, which is basically flour, butter, and egg, and it's piped out of a pastry bag. That's pretty cool. I considered doing that, but I opted for this one. So I think the best way to be good at making gnocchi is to make it often. As with any pasta making, it requires a feel. Now, I don't know, I don't find this gnocchi to be as touchy as potato gnocchi, which has a lot of variables because of the water content in the potatoes and even the water content in the flour, which can vary. But you do need to make sure that you get as much moisture as you possibly can out of your spinach. And that's what we're going to start with, is making the filling for this. Okay, so the spinach. This is fresh spinach, baby spinach is what I used, and I used 12 ounces of it. And what I did with it was I steamed it, and I steamed it in my pasta pot. So little water in the bottom, and I put all the spinach in here. 2 minutes of steaming, and it's completely cooked down. So then what I do is I take my pot, set it like this, and I let it cool for a very long time. It takes about an hour to completely cool down. Then I take it over to the sink and use this like a colander to start pushing that water out, which gets you pretty far. I usually use a paper towel, and I just really muscle it to get as much water out as I can. But from there, I keep going, because I really do want to get all of the water out of it. So then I'm over the sink. I just take that mass of spinach in my hands and I squeeze it and just keep squeezing it. And you will be amazed how much water will come out. No paper towels, just your hands. And you keep squeezing it, and it will literally, by the time you're done, be half as much spinach as what you started with. And then when it gets down to half as much, then that you really have gotten as much water out of it as you can. At that point, if you want to take some paper towels just to be sure and squeeze it in that. But at that point, that's the best way I've found to really get the water out, is just use your hands. Pressing it into a colander doesn't do the same thing. So I did all of that, and of course it was completely cool, so I could handle it. And then I chopped it up pretty fine. To give you an idea of how much water came out of this, I said 12 ounces of fresh spinach, baby spinach. And by the time I got done squeezing it, I weighed it, and it's just over 3 ounces now. So that's how much water I actually took out of that spinach. And as I said, I chopped it up fine, and there it is. And then to that, I'm going to add some fresh ricotta. Let's see, let's just use this. And this is a cup of fresh ricotta. I made this earlier this week, and it's a little on the crumbly side, which I am just fine with. I let it drain extra long. And the thing with making your own ricotta is you kind of control how much moisture is in that ricotta just by how long you let it drain. Didn't push it through or anything. It just sat in the colander, and every once in a while I would just tip it and pour off the liquid and just let it sit again. So that's what that looks like. Just going to kind of keep mixing this as we go. Then I've got a half a cup of grated Asiago. Could use Parmesan, could use Gran Padano. As far as the ricotta goes, and I'm always telling people to make their own, and I did post a recipe. I think I did. I'll take a look at that. Can't remember if I did or not. I intended to post a recipe for it, but I make my own because it's fresh. And I find that unless I buy it from a shop that makes their own, which is going to be pretty hard right now, I think a lot of places aren't doing that at this particular time. But the manufactured stuff always tastes a little tainted to me. So once I started making my own, I just never went back. And that's what I do. Okay, so I've got an egg yolk here. Actually, let me just beat this up a little bit.
Question about, do you think you lose nutrients kind of squeezing it all out, or is just some of it, is that just the natural thing that happens from?
Oh, I think you probably lose some nutrients. I mean, anytime you cook something, you're losing nutrients.
Right.
I mean, that's just the bottom line. And certainly, I mean, this is not cooked in water. That's one of the reasons I prefer steaming. But the only way this works is I mean, spinach holds so much water that if you don't take some of it out. So, but yes, you're going to get some nutrients going down the drain, and there's not a thing you can do about it that I know of. Let's mix in that egg. But that's a great question. I mean, in terms of how you manage the spinach, there are a lot of different ideas out there on how to do it. I've seen it sauteed. I've seen it blanched. And then, of course, then you have more water to deal with because it's actually taking on the water that it was in. So this way just works for me. And, if I'm serving spinach as a side dish, I never do this. As a matter of fact, I lightly cook it and leave all that water in the leaves. So there's this kind of point if you're sauteing where it'll start to wilt. But if you keep going, all the water starts coming out of it. And that's too far if you're serving it as a side dish. So, but this is not what I'm doing. I'm trying to get it to incorporate into this. And there is going to be some nutrient loss. I'm fairly certain of that. Anytime you get rid of anything, that's in water form, it's going to go down the drain. Okay, so egg, 1/4 teaspoon each of kosher salt. Freshly ground black pepper. I'm guessing on that. I like pepper a lot. And then some freshly grated nutmeg. I always grate my own nutmeg. Just so wonderful. This is kind of discretionary in terms of how much you want to use. I'll give a little bit more. I like nutmeg too. Okay, so there's that. And then mix all of this up. Pretty dry looking mixture, right? I'm okay with that. Did I get everything in there except for the flour?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mary asked if you could use frozen spinach. It would be the same amount.
Yeah, frozen spinach, okay, is going to have the same thing. That's also has water in it. So a 10-ounce package, I think I'm right on that, is probably going to wind up being a little more than what you need. A general rule of thumb is this is a 10-ounce package, and it will have some water in it because of how they freeze it, chopped or not chopped. So 10-ounce package is the equivalent of a pound of fresh spinach. So it's a little bit more. So I would go back to the 3.5 ounces that I weighed this out at and use that as your guideline. That being said, I'm sure if you have a little more spinach or a little, the ratio is a little bit off, you're going to be fine with that. The main thing is that you want this mixture to go together well, but you don't want it to be either too wet or too dry. So that's what you're dancing with. And frozen spinach, I use frozen vegetables for a lot of things. I think that frozen vegetables get a really bad rap, but actually they're really treated quite perfectly. So I could definitely see that would be a good option if you wanted to take that. Take a step out, but you still have to get the water out of it. So you still have to thaw the spinach. I don't think you even have to cook the spinach. You can thaw the spinach and then get the water out of it because it's blanched to, in their process that they do with freezing, it's blanched. What it brings to mind is frozen peas. I have a number of recipes that I've written where I use frozen peas. I don't use fresh peas because frozen peas are great and they make a great sauce. They blend really well. I make a spring pea soup. And if Jean, if you're on, I did not make that soup in the silver lining series, but I will do it coming up, I promise. But I honestly don't use spring peas from the market for it. I use frozen peas and it's better. So sometimes frozen is just great. And this is, what should I say, a 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jean says the recipe says 1 ounce of spinach.
I think we changed that, and that is wrong. Yeah. We had a typo in that, and if you go back to the website, Jean, it's corrected. And sorry about that. Okay. Now I'm looking at this, and I think I'll put a little bit more flour in there, but I think I'm going to stop here.
How do you know when to stop adding flour?
Well, it's kind of a feel thing. I don't want it to be too dry. I want it to stick together, but I want it to stay kind of light. I'll do a little bit more.
So too much flour might make it tough. Is that what you're saying?
Too much flour can make it dense. You know, it's sort of the same thing that in working with the potato gnocchi, but this is a lot more forgiving, I feel. Okay. Yeah, I'm thinking that's looking pretty good. And plus, I'm going to be rolling it with a little flour on the board. So I've got some extra flour here. And I'm going to just sprinkle some on this sheet. I don't know if you can see that. And I'm going to check my water too. I have some water here yep, that's perfect. Okay. So this is going to be where I'm going to put my gnocchi. So I want some flour here so they're nice and dusted, and then we'll just flour our board lightly. How's that? Does that work for you?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, as far as that recipe goes, we're not sure what happened. It went somewhere in the process of it being edited. It went crazy because it was never 1 ounce of spinach, ever. So it went on its own. So sorry about that. Yeah, I think that feels pretty nice. Well, now I'm feeling this. It might be a little wet. So I'm going to add some more of that flour in. And I can smell that nutmeg. It's just great. Okay. So I say in the new recipe, I don't know if I honestly, I think that we had a version that just wound up unedited and went out there. So I'm working with roughly a half a cup here. Now this gnocchi has a sort of variegated look to it. Can you see how I roll it with just my fingers? And then just kind of work my way out. So it has a kind of a variegated look to it, which I like. If you wanted to run your spinach through a ricer, you could certainly do that, and then it would be much more of a solid look. Okay, let's do this. Let's take this off and see how this water is. I'll turn that up a little bit. Okay. Then we're going to do a little test. Then we'll know how we're doing. I'll take one of these little guys. Roll it with just a little bit of flour. Let's just turn this up a little bit. So I don't really want to rock his foil. I just want it to be kind of moving around. And let's drop him in and see what happens to him. So at this point, just like with the potato gnocchi, you have a chance to fix something. Now, if you had too much flour and they turn out to be dense, there's nothing you can do about it. But if they fall apart, then you know you need some more flour, and then you can deal with that. So let's just watch here. These guys take a little while. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. I can just scooch everything down. You can honestly probably see more than I can. I'm going to take it on faith that that's going to work and cut these. So I'm just using a sharp bench knife for this. You can either oil that if you want to, because you're going to have some pieces of spinach that you need to kind of cut through. Now we're going. Can you see that on the camera? Oh, I see him.
Yeah, he's floating around there.
Okay, let's see. I'm too short for this pot. That's the problem here. Here we go. Okay, he's up there. So I'm going to let him roll around for a little bit longer. At least a minute. I like to let him just cook for a little bit. Potato gnocchi I take out right when it rises to the top. This I just let go a little bit longer. Seems to just keep them together better.
Andrea asked, why don't you use your ribbed board on this one?
Well, for one thing, because of the spinach, it won't do the dents in the same way.
Hmm.
So that's the main reason. They just don't make the same kind of have the same kind of definition that you do with the potato gnocchi. Oh yeah, he's looking good. Good. I'm happy. Get a few more going here. It was already done. And you can make these any size that you want to. Sometimes you'll see gnocchi. It's a little more flour. I'll borrow some of that. You see gnocchi really tiny, or you'll see them bigger. Whatever suits your fancy. Okay, and let's drop a few more of these in. I'll take him out first, though. Okay. There we go. And the great thing about this is that you kind of have, I mean, they set their own timer. They rise to the top and you let them bobble around for a while, and you don't have to set a timer wondering if they're done, because once they rise to the top, you know that they're pretty much close to there. How's that going? Yeah, pretty good.
Mary asked, can you freeze the uncooked gnocchi like the potato ones?
Yeah, there are two ways to do it. You can either cook it and do this and then put them on a baking sheet like this and let them cool completely. So you can do that cooked, or you can do them not cooked, either way. But what I do is always freeze them on a baking sheet first completely, and then I put them in a Ziploc bag. So same thing. The advantage of cooking them first is, say you want to just throw them in a sauce, then you don't have to go through this. You can just take them out and they're already cooked, and you can throw them in the sauce and literally thaw them in the sauce. So that's the advantage to doing it that way. But I confess that most of the time I make them and freeze them and cook them later. But either way works. Let's let these guys go for a little while. And I have back there, we're going to just have these with a little bit of butter and a little bit of cheese, and that is it. That's all we're doing. So hold on a second there. There we go. As far as, how many you get out of this, I think I say serves 4 people. You'll get quite a lot of gnocchi depending on the size that you make. So you get more than you would think out of just a little recipe. Yep, it does say serves 4, and that's 4 people. Whoops, I pulled that apart. That's okay. 4 people, a dinner serving. So if you wanted to make it a first course, you could consider that 8 people.
So Jean asked, this is about the size of your thumb, thickness-wise, the roll.
Yeah, roughly. And like I said, you can do whatever you want. So the main thing is it's just trying to make them the same size so that they cook evenly together. How are these guys doing? Yep, they're all up at the top. Funny. They're herding together. But yeah, this is the size I typically make. And yes, it's about 1 inch in diameter. And I cut them, this is probably close to 1.25 inches. I just naturally do them that way. And I think what's great about this, once you get the hang of it, there's no reason to not just throw gnocchi together. It's not a big deal. Okay, how's this going? Okay, look at they're all grouped together like they're friends. Let's pull those out. It helps if you have a spider or some Slotted spoons are fine, but these are great for it because you can get so many in one place. How cute they are. Did I get everyone? I'm just going to throw in these that are done. And I've got some butter back there that I'm just going to quickly turn the heat on for a second. Okay, any other questions that you have? I'll save that for later.
Are there other greens that you could use this recipe with?
Yeah, actually, I was just looking at, it wasn't a recipe, but it was a menu with dandelion green gnocchi, which I think would be interesting. And dandelion greens are used in, the Italians eat them a lot. So that's a possibility. But the other thing that I haven't tried yet, but I'm definitely going to, is using beets. So that wouldn't be this recipe necessarily, but I thought it was beautiful, that beautiful red color. And I think that with golden beets, and maybe I'll do that at the farmer's market. Just really beautiful. So yeah, there's some other things that you can do that are variations. This is, everything I've been showing you, I would consider to be pretty traditional. But
you do that with
step out,
or just the beets and flour?
I think I would do it more like the potato gnocchi.
Oh, okay.
Because beets have a certain amount of starch, so it'll probably be a dance of getting it to work in the beginning. But so that's a variation. But other greens, I wouldn't probably try anything like kale. I would try something that was tender, that would lend itself well to working with the ricotta and not resisting it. So yeah, definitely. There they are up at the top already. So I am pleased that these guys are hanging together. Okay, let's pull them out. This dish is for you.
Oh, Gene asked if you could use basil in.
Yeah, absolutely. If you wanted to incorporate herbs into them, you certainly could do that. I might be more inclined to incorporate herbs into the sauce. In other words, like the sage butter or basil butter or that type of thing infused in there. But you could certainly add that into the mix. I wouldn't probably, no, I definitely would not steam the basil. I would just use the basil fresh and cut it into the spinach and do it that way. Okay, so let me get rid of this board, and then we'll do a little butter on top here. Okay, so this is just some salted butter. And I do like butter, obviously. But it's not going to look like so much butter once I put all this cheese all over it. And this is just some grated Asiago. Again, it doesn't have to be Asiago. That's just my cheese of choice. But Parmesan, Gran Padano, Romano, whatever you feel like using. And there we go. That is it.
Beautiful.
Isn't that pretty? You're getting the full effect?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the great thing about this whole literally 40 nights of cooking for the past 8 weeks, 5 nights a week, has been that we've had some pretty magnificent dinners. It's been a little weird when we do sourdough muffins, and then that's what we've got, because the prep for this takes quite a bit of time. So by the time I get done, we're either eating what I've made, or we're not eating, or we'll have popcorn. But it's been a wonderful adventure. I can't remember what we started with, because there's just been so many recipes, but it's just been a delight to work on, and I so appreciate the opportunity and the fact that people are watching and sharing. It's been really, really fun. So we are looking forward to continuing in a different capacity next week and throughout the summer because, I mean, being affiliated with the farmers market is great, especially when I can actually cook with what is at the market. And so, and what the way it works is, we start in June because they were in Minnesota, so things come in late. You think June 1st is going to be off, you're off and running, but not always. It just depends on the year. But as we get towards July, then all, snap peas start coming in, and you start getting later zucchini, and then you get all your peppers. And then by the time sweet corn in usually late July or early August. So then at that point, there's so much to work with that it gets hard to make a decision. But I wanted to start with rhubarb because I, thank you, Jean, have rhubarb in my yard. And I've been working on this cake this is my 4th pass at it. So just to get the recipe exactly the way I wanted it. I have not completely exhausted all that rhubarb out there, but I've been out there a lot pulling rhubarb. But anyway, so thank you, Jean, for that because I've never used as much as I thought I should use of that rhubarb until now. And now I'm worried that I'm going to just completely obliterate it all. But no, I'm kidding. It's so abundant. So anyway, I wanted to start with that because in that is obvious, and I love rhubarb, and it's a sign of the time of year. But then the next week we'll be doing a pasta that has spring asparagus, which I'm not quite sure if it's here yet, but will be very soon. And that's pasta with rhubarb and asparagus together. Really
walnuts.
Delightful.
And walnuts.
And walnuts, yeah. And walnuts. It's kind of an odd combination, but it's delicious. So we've been testing all of that stuff to get ready for the upcoming.
Mary asked if you browned the butter for this.
I did not brown the butter. I know you ask me that a lot, so you must want me to brown the butter, but I did not. I just melted the butter. It has to be salted because you need that extra salt kick in there, and that's it. But you could brown the butter if you wanted to. Definitely. But I like it just butter.
Jean reminds you that the rhubarb came from Blanche.
It's Blanche's rhubarb. Yes, it is. I think about that every time I go out there. Blanche is, for those of you that don't know, Blanche is Jean's mother. And so we went and she gave me the gift of some of these plants. We planted them in the backyard and they went crazy. They are just, I mean, they're practically up when the snow is still there. It's just amazing. And I also have some raspberries we're going to be working with later too. Not from Blanche, but also from Jean. All good. Thank you. Is it okay? Anything else we got going there?
Will the Silver Linings recipes be a cookbook?
Yes, that is something that we have been talking about. So hang on one second. So this is the printed version of the Holiday Survival Toolkit cookbook. And so we did an ebook and we finally got it printed, and this is the only one, but we are going to make more once we figure out how we're going to actually sell them to people. But the whole concept was for all of these sections that are actually cooking club sections, just like the Silver Linings will be, there are over 40 recipes for this. So I wanted to do little mini cookbooks that eventually would all go together into one large cookbook. And then every year we will update them. Like the Holiday Survival Toolkit is 40 recipes, 30 recipes?
30 some.
We don't know how many recipes, 30 something recipes. So next year we'll do an updated version of this. So there'll be additional recipes on top of this. So every year there'll be a new book to add to the library. So that's the plot with that. And I love these like little pamphlet style, but they're perfect bound. They're nice. And pictures inside. So yes, that is the plan. And we're going to start working on that really quickly because we want to get it in front of people while they still remember what the Silver Linings cooking series was. Makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, so no more questions, right? That's the end? Okay. Everybody, thank you so much. This has been a delight. I will miss doing this every night, but I am looking forward to Wednesdays and Thursdays going forward, except for next week. It's just Thursday. And we'll be doing the rhubarb lemon custard cake. If you are not a member of the club, please go to Bonicelli Cooking Club, grab your recipes, look at the blog, and join the club. It's a delightful thing, and we would love to have you. And that's it, everybody. I am signing off. I'm Chef Laura Bonicelli. Please keep cooking, and we'll see you next week on Thursday. Take care, everyone. Mwah.